Всем привет! The Russian language occupies the 8th place in the ranking of the most popular languages in the world. According to various estimates, it is spoken by 300 million people, that is about 4% of the world's population. For comparison, 85 million people speak Italian, 100 million German, 130 Japanese. Most of the Russian-speaking people live, of course, in the Russian Federation. But millions people in Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Belarus, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan and other countries consider it their second native language. In the territory of the post-Soviet space, Russian is the language of tourism, business and everyday communication. If you plan to travel or do business in any of the list countries, it is enough for you to know only Russian. The seller, waiter, taxi driver, policeman or doctor will understand you. There are 33 letters in the Russian alphabet. The language consists of about 200,000 words, or rather their basic forms. The average Russian knows 35,000 words, but in order to communicate freely or read literature, it's enough to know only 3,000. Unlike English, spoken Russian is very flexible. You can easily change the order of words in a sentence without losing the meaning of the phrase. There is no such plenty of tenses, there are no articles, almost all words are read as they are written. It would seem that these are ideal conditions for studying. However, according to the American Institute of Foreign Service, Russian is the 5th most difficult language on the planet. It is second only to Hungarian, Japanese, Arabic and Chinese. What are the difficulties of learning Russian? I often heard the following phrase from foreigners. How lucky Russian people are that they know Russian from birth. As a native speaker, it was difficult for me to understand why my logical and understandable language is so difficult for English and Americans to learn. And here are the conclusions I came to. I have compiled a rating of the most problematic topics. Pronunciation. Try saying the word «жужелица» out loud. And now, ящерица. And say, взяточничество. For me, as a native speaker, this will not be a problem. For an English-speaking person, the pronunciation of such words causes a lot of difficulties. Why? Because in English there are no sounds that occur in Russian. For example, Ж, Щ, И, Ч. It's hard for you to pronounce them. I understand it. The English language took revenge on us. We also have to get used to new sounds, for example, the. We don't have such a sound at all. T. For example, table. We say Т, теория. R. For example, rabbit. We say R, родник. But this problem is easily solved with the help of regular reading or communication. Cases. This is a separate and perhaps the most difficult topic. I will not dwell on it in detail now. We will sort this out in the future. But I will briefly say why cases are needed at all. With their help, we form a connection between words. For example, in English I will say, I like Russian vodka. Actually, I hate it. The same sentence in Russian will sound like this. Мне нравится русская водка. But if we say, I like to drink Russian vodka, then in Russian it will be мне нравится пить русскую водку. We see how the endings of words have changed. What for? Why? It's illogical. I agree. But this is only at the first glance. And we will definitely deal with this topic in future lessons. Suffixes. As far as I know, there are no analogies of these in English. Suffixes help us form new words. For example, there is a word elephant in English. But what do we call it? Baby elephant. In Russian, we don't say baby elephant. There is слон and there is слоненок. There is тигр and there is тигренок. There is кот and there is котенок. By adding a suffix, енок, we create a new word based on another. Of course, there are exceptions. For example, there is собака and there is щенок. These are two completely different words. Nothing is clear yet, right? It's okay. We will definitely figure it out. Genders. Every noun in the Russian language has its gender. Masculine, feminine, or neuter. For example, in English we will say he went, she went, it went. But in Russian it will sound like this. Он пошел, она пошла, оно пошло. When I study an English word, I need to memorize its pronunciation and translation. When a foreigner studies a Russian word, he also needs to remember the gender. Homonyms. Homonyms are words that are spelled the same but have different meanings. There are a huge number of them in the Russian language. For example, look, a vegetable, and look, a weapon. Кисть, kiwi, a fruit, and kiwi, a bird. A pen, for writing, and a door handle. Intonation. Intonation is one of the basics of spoken Russian. With its help, a phrase can completely change its meaning. For example, Ты пошел? Are you going? It means that I'm asking someone if he's going to leave. Ты пошел. You go. For example, this is how a commander can give a command to a serviceman. Пошел ты. I think that explanations are not needed here. Sentences consist of identical words. But how the meaning changes? It seems to me that no English-speaking Russian teacher will ever be able to explain the meaning of intonation in our language. Only a native speaker can do this. If I'm not mistaken, Russian intonation is not taught in language courses. Perhaps the only exception is the Academy of the Central Intelligence Agency, where future spies are trained. Of course, this is not all the difficulties of the Russian language. There are also prefixes, endings, stable expressions, synonyms, plural and singular numbers, double negations, accent. But, despite these difficulties, you can learn to speak Russian in a short time. So, what is necessary in order to learn Russian? First of all, you need to remember that Russian and English are completely different languages. These are completely different cultures. There is no need to compare them with each other and apply the logic of one language to another. This is the main rule. Start learning Russian from a clean slate. Imagine that you don't know any other languages at all. Learn not only the language, but also the culture of its native speakers. Modern languages are developing so fast that the rules don't keep up with them. For example, давай сходим куда-нибудь. This is a call to go somewhere. For example, to a cafe or a park. Ладно, давай. Russian-speaking people use this phrase as a farewell. Depending on the context, the same word has different meanings. Or another example, the phrase «руки не доходят посмотреть». It means that a person does not have enough time to look at something, to understand something. However, in the literal translation into English, the sentence sounds «hands do not reach to look». All this cannot be adjusted to any rules. These are the features of the language. You can understand these features only by learning the logic and culture of native speakers. Learn the language daily. It sounds banal, but like any non-innate skill, learning a foreign language requires daily classes. When we were born, we didn't even know our native language. But every day we heard human speech, and this gave us the opportunity to learn English or Russian already in early childhood. Read texts, watch video tutorials or movies in Russian for at least 30 minutes a day. You will memorize new words, stable expressions, sounds, intonation.
Я извиняюсь, но ты таки босяк, некому задницу надрать. 5 пистолетов, не пачка папирос, они таки стреляют. Ну ты же не окно в женской бане, зачем в тебе дырка?
And in a few months, you will be able to understand Russian well. How long does it take to learn to speak Russian? Everything is individual. But I have met Americans, Syrians and Germans who have learned to communicate well in Russian in just 1 year. The level of their language was sufficient for us to discuss the latest news, work, tourism, computer games and national cuisine. I think that with daily classes everyone can achieve such indicators. One day I met a girl. She is German and has never been to Russia, but she has always dreamed about it. She has been studying Russian for the last 3 years. In such a short period of time, the level of her language has become so high that at our first communication I did not realize that she was a foreigner. She didn't even have an accent. I delighted for her skills. Constant communication with friends from Russia helped her to achieve such incredible indicators. Before we start learning Russian, let's decide, why do we need to know it at all? Russian is a very rich and beautiful language. The Russian language is not just another way of communicating. The Russian language is a reflection of the centuries-old Slavic culture. The Western and Eastern worlds have completely attitudes to the same phenomenon or process. Therefore, learning Russian is a great way to learn how millions of other people think. Literature and art. Many masterpieces are written in Russian. The great works of Pushkin, Chekhov, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy are considered the property of world literature. They deserve to be read in the original. Я помню чудное мгновенье. Передо мной явилась ты, как мимолетное видение, как гений чистой красоты. By the way, my favorite Russian writer is Bulgakov, and I can't imagine how you can read the work Master and Margarita in another language. It's like listening to a great Linkin Park band performed by a drunk friend in karaoke. Russian is the language of emotions and feelings. English is the language of logic. The sentences have a clear structure, the words are concise. It seems to me that the main task of English is to convey information quickly and accurately. Perhaps I'm wrong because I don't speak it well. Russian is the language of emotions and feelings. With the help of the Russian language, you can learn to express love, admiration, anger, indifference more vividly. Russian myth. The Russian myth is the crown of mankind's creation. It's like the first human flight into space, as a cure for all diseases. With the same swear word, you can insult a neighbor, express your admiration for the weather, and show indifference to everything that is happening. But this is a separate topic, and I probably won't consider it on YouTube. I hope that I was able to tell at least a little useful information about the Russian language. In the next video, we will start learning the basic of any language, the alphabet and sounds. This will be the first lesson for beginners. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Пока-пока.